hi, Maria.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Of course. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Oh, my. So I'm Maria Anderson. I grew up here in Utah. My husband is in the military, so we now live out in Georgia. I've got 2 beautiful boys, and I have a girl on the way. I don't know what else about me.
That's great.
I don't know. I never like to talk about myself, but
I know. I think once you become a mom, that just kind of goes out the window.
I know I can talk about other people,
right? Yeah. Oh, I can talk about my kids and other people for days, but
myself.
Yeah. It's like, not that interesting.
No, right? I agree with me.
Yeah.
My mom, Cindy, she has been with Adoptive Love since the very beginning, helping the director, Kathy. And so, mom's always wanted to adopt. And so, she adopted my little brother, and then she needed her girl. She wanted a girl. So Kathy called her one day and said, I've got your girl for you. But she has a brother that comes along with her. And so, mom and dad had to think about it for a minute. But
sure.
So that's how I was placed with them, and how I've been intertwined with the Adoptive Love. But, I know a lot of the kids that have either been adopted or bio kids, as they say, the biological kids that also have been involved with Adoptive Love. But yeah,
that's awesome. I know. I love how everyone's like family. Once you meet Kathy, you just become family with Kathy.
Yes.
And she'll take care of you.
Yes.
I met your mom for the first time. I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And I really like her. She's awesome.
No, she's great. She's great. And, one of my really, really good friends is Kathy's daughter that is also adopted. And so, I don't know. It's always been just a part of my life. So it doesn't feel any different, but yeah.
Yeah. That's great. What is your adopted family like? And do you have...
Yes. I would say we're like any typical family. I mean, we have crazy moments, and there's 6 kids altogether. And there were a lot of times where it was very, very loud and obnoxious. Growing up, I did not love my little brothers, but it was just because they're my little brothers, and they were annoying and arguing. But anyway, I love them to death now. I think it's very different when you all become adults, but I would say just the typical Christian white family.
I get that. Yeah.
And just I would say normal for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, with my family, it's a little bit different because I grew up with 2 disabled siblings. Yeah. And so that was a little bit different in itself. And we're also different mixes in our family. So I'm Filipino. My biological brother is half Filipino, half white. So we both have the same mother, but different fathers.
Okay.
And then you have one of my other brothers, which... yes, he's white, but he's not, blood relative or anything like that. So we had a lot of different ethnicities going, disabilities. So, I mean, we were just different all around. But I would say we were just, the typical family. Yeah.
I think, my family, definitely. I grew up with 6 kids too. And I know the chaos that goes into that. Yes. Especially being one of the older kids.
I was smack dab in the middle.
Okay.
So I've got 2 older sisters and a brother, and then I've got 2 younger brothers. Okay. And there are different phases as you're growing up of who you're closer to and whatnot. But like I said, once we were all adults, I say that adults, I think we all are much closer than when we were growing up. But
So how has being adopted impacted your life, and what kind of challenges have you faced as an adoptee, and how have you overcome them?
So if for me, and I can only speak for me. I mean, not even my little brother or anything like that. The impact is huge. I mean, I can only imagine if I were never placed with my family, but I don't know what that would really be like. But it's huge because it's brought me to who I am today.
Yeah.
And, my mom and dad have always been so open about our adoption. And if we had questions, they would always answer. They weren't afraid to, really tell us the truth. And of course, depending on age, but,
right. Age appropriate.
I think just with my parents being so open, it wasn't this taboo, scary, unknown thing. And so for me, the impact is just, I've been able to meet all these people. I've been able to have this nuclear family where I have a mom and a dad, and I've got all these siblings. I have a roof over my head. I have, all the things that any child would dream of, right? Of course, as a child, I thought the grass was always greener on the other side. But,
exactly. No,
but now as an adult, I mean, I was able to do just even the simplest things, play with friends, have Barbie dolls. And, I was 8 years old when I was placed. Okay. So I was quite a bit older than some of the traditional or typical kids that are placed. And so I do remember a lot. And I would have to say that I would imagine if I weren't placed and I stayed with my birth mother, I would not have a lot of the opportunities that I would have been able to do.
Yeah.
And again, from simple things as having Barbies and, having birthdays and, things like that to, I was able to do some extracurricular activities in high school. I was able to drive a car in high school. And if I were with my birth mother, as hard as she worked to support us, that just wasn't something that she would have been able to provide. And I know that, I also felt like I had to grow up a little bit faster.
Oh yeah.
Than the traditional kid. Mm-hmm. I had to come home from school, make my own snacks, things like that. So, where when I was placed, I remember my mom having this conversation with me saying that, I'm the mom now, you don't have to worry about that. And it was more over my little brother,
right?
Just, caring for him, things like that. And my mom said, it's okay. You can go play, go be a child. Yeah. And so that, that took an adjustment, but I don't think it took very long, but yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. So I think impactful, it has had a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't feel like I have had any challenges as an adoptee.
That's great.
I think, like I said, my parents have always been open, and I feel like as years go by, generations go by, adoption isn't this scary thing to talk about,
right?
Or nobody does that, or oh my gosh, you're adopting a child that's not your same race, or I feel like it's a lot more open and accepting now.
100%.
And even and even growing up, I didn't have any friends that were like, so
how does that work?
Yeah. What's the situation there? And of course, again, I've had, a friend that also was adopted. So I had, that same experiences I could talk to her with and things like that. So that was helpful.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
But really as kids, it's like, nobody knows what adoption is, whatever. Right. They just notice your parents are a different color, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think nowadays is very different than 40 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So
100%.
Challenges, not so much. I think growing up in Utah and predominantly white, I think the only time I ever felt kind of different, just because I looked different.
Yeah.
But as I grew up, people saw that I looked different, but they remembered me.
Right.
You know, and then I started accepting like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's because I look exotic and
you are, and you're beautiful.
People like that.
Yeah, they do. It's true.
So it was just more, trying to understand that dynamic, but challenges as an adoptee. No, I don't feel like I had anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Well, I think
on that realm.
Yeah. I think it helps that your parents were so transparent.
Yes.
Because that clears up so much.
Yes.
Especially as a kid.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, with me being older, where my little brother was 14 months when he was adopted. So,
right. That's a huge difference.
So he doesn't really remember as much as I do.
Yeah.
And not that they weren't transparent with him, but, his feelings and what he experienced, things like that is very different than me.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and my mom knew, and especially her working in an adoption agency, she just knew that she needed to be transparent and for me to understand my feelings, to feel validated, to be okay with how I was feeling, because it wasn't always happy-go-lucky. I was, just fit right in, which I did fit right in. But, I did have, some up and downs. And as I approach adolescent time,
that's the hardest time.
Lots of
there's a lot going on there. Yeah.
And, and then adulthood, lots of feelings there. And then when I became a mother, lots of different feelings there. Yeah. So, I just think that my parents just being so open with me was huge.
Yeah.
Because my sister-in-law, she is a birth mother and she hasn't had, unfortunately, the same experience. And so, I try and help her in the eyes as an adoptee. But, everybody's experience is different. But yeah. For me, no big challenges, no huge issues, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's what we want to hear.
Mom and dad never felt like they loved their biological kids more than their adoptive. I never felt that.
Good.
And, they we had all the same rules.
Yeah.
We had all the same curfews. We had all the same, things to eat.
Yeah.
All the same clothes to wear, so, and that is huge. And, I know not everybody feels that way either, but, that's a huge thing.
Well, and that's kind of why we're doing this. I say this on almost all of our podcasts, but we do this because there are so many different perspectives, so many different experiences when it comes to adoption. And we're hoping by having this podcast, someone will relate to something that you say and something that you've been through.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. This has been great. And
thank you.
I love your perspective on adoption, from your point of view.
Yeah.
As a mom, we all know it's so hard. It's extremely hard to be a mom and to know what's best for your kids. Mm-hmm. And like you said, when you get into motherhood, you start being like, okay, what am I projecting on my kids that I haven't worked through? Or what is something that I can work on so my kid doesn't have to go through that?
Yes.
Or how do I teach them the right ways, right? Like we're all going to mess up our kids. That's just what's going to happen.
Yes,
but at least we're trying to do better than the last, right? And so,
well, and also, it takes a person to welcome a child that's not biologically theirs, and and especially being 8, and my parents did tell me that they had to have a conversation saying, okay, if we adopt her, there could be some things that we're also accepting that come along with her.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened in her past. We don't know any kind of trials. We don't know this, that, and the other. But they were willing to do it. And they said, you know what, we feel good about it. And my parents are religious. And so that, helped in itself as well. But it takes some very wonderful people to really accept children that are not biologically theirs. And again, like I said, they love us the same as their biological children.
Yeah.
And, my siblings had never, they had never acted differently towards us either. And I don't know, Heidi can probably speak on that end too, but, I'm just as close to my adoptive siblings than my biological brother. So, there was just no difference there.
My parents got divorced and then they both had kids with other people. And I just went on a vacation with my 2 younger siblings, and it's crazy how you don't even like there's no difference for us. No. Like we joke with each other, we make fun of each other, and we love each other and we do anything for each other. Yeah. And I think that bond with siblings, whether you're adopted or not, is huge in that sense where, you grew up, even though you have different perspectives and you see things differently, at least you had someone that was like there and they have an idea of like how your parents are. We love making fun of my mom and my dad together. It happens all the time. And my mom knows it too. But yeah, just to have, people on your side who are going to welcome you and love you no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy that you had that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, I'm very fortunate to have the experience I've had. Again, not everybody has that. So
yeah, that's true. It's true. Have you searched for or connected with your birth family? If so, what has that experience been like for you?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I hope if there's anything you don't want to answer, please feel free to just be like, no, I don't want to answer that question. I'm good.
No. I'm an open book.
Okay, good.
Sometimes I tell some water really quick. Sometimes I tell too much. Mom's like that. Mom is like, it's good though. It's good.
I know all about your family. Yeah.
That's what we love about it.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny, the difference between nature and nurture. I don't know if there's I know they do lots of studies on it. I don't know if anyone really knows, but it is funny how my stepdad that adopted me, I am just like him in so many ways. It's so crazy.
And a lot of people say that about me and Mom.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's just the way we answer the phone or just, something that they see in me, a mannerism, they're like, oh, it's just like your mom. And where, again, we're not blood related or, she hadn't raised me from a baby or whatever. But I mean, she's had me now for 20, I don't know, plus years.
Yeah.
And so it's hard not to have those same traits.
Yeah.
But for me as an adoptee, I love hearing that just because, I know I don't look like my parents and I know I don't look like a lot of my siblings, which growing up was kind of hard.
Yeah.
But I love hearing that I do have same traits as, my mom or these things about my dad or whatever.
Yeah.
I do love hearing that. But searching, yes. So there has been times in my life where, I chose not to talk to my birth mother or correspond in letters. So in the beginning, my brother and I, we were in an open adoption, which means that, pictures are sent and, letters can be sent and, depending on how adoptive parents feel, things like that. I mean, there could be visits, things like that. So, Mom and Dad felt like having an open adoption, especially for me, would be helpful just because I do remember my birth
You're
mother.
old enough to know.
Yes. And so I don't know a lot about my birth father because so I was born in the Philippines. My mother migrated to Hawaii with her side of the family when I was about 9 months old.
Okay.
So I never got to know my birth father. Until I know a little bit about him, but that was much, much later down the road when I was an adult.
Yeah.
But when I was first adopted, we would correspond with letters. She would send, gifts on my birthday or Christmas, cards, almost every holiday. But there was a point in my life where I talked to my mom. So when I say my mom, I say my adoptive mom.
Yeah.
Not my birth mother. And so, I told my mom, I said, this is just too much. It's just a lot. And I think it's because I still had feelings for my birth mother, but I was, I also loved my mom. It was just,
it gets confusing.
Yes. Yeah. There was a lot of confusion. And so I told my mom that, I kind of want my birth mother to kind of step back a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if she wants to send a card here and there, great. If she wants to send a letter, great. But I don't want her to expect that I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
But also, mom and dad were really good about I don't want to say, maybe it's screening, but just kind of
screening to make sure it's
seeing if the cards and letters were appropriate, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a child and I don't know what's appropriate
so
or not.
Was this when did those letters start?
So, I mean, immediately.
Okay.
From when I was adopted. And so I would say up until I was about 14, which of course, that's when
Yep. All the good stuff happens.
all the nice, wonderful adolescent hormones start kicking in.
Yeah.
Up until about that time, that's when I said, okay, Mom, I need her to step back. I kind of just want to focus on me, our
the stuff
family
that's going on right here, right now. Yeah.
And Mom said, okay. And, she felt that that's my decision to make, not something that she could make for me.
Yeah.
And she's always been good about that too, where, Maria's older, like she knows what
she needs and what she doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where with my little brother, that was different,
Sure.
He was a little baby still, and she could really still hone in and say, okay, no, that's not appropriate. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we did have one visit in between that time. And that was just, and I was probably about 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And I thought I would be fine.
Yeah.
Because I had my parents there and my little brother that, so we went to Jungle Gyms.
Yeah.
Which I think is still alive and running. I don't know.
But it's not. It's gone.
No? Okay. It's gone. Okay.
Is that in Salt Lake?
No, it was in the Marine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
We had this open, place to meet. And, but for me, it was just, I don't know. I think I remember feeling awkward. I remember feeling like, how do I act?
Yeah. How do I act around her? Yeah.
And two, it's, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but I don't know. I didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
But then I had anyway, there's a lot of feelings going on.
Yeah.
So, after that visit and they had left, of course I cried and lots, upset. And I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to do those anymore, at least till further notice.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Yeah. And my mom was totally okay with that. And so it was years and years later that I didn't see her. It wasn't until probably my senior year of high school.
Okay.
So what was I? 17.
Yeah.
So several years later. Yeah. And so during that time, I was able to really go through my feelings, see how I felt. I went through an angry phase. I went through, I don't care about her phase. I went through a lot of different phases, but by that time I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe I'm ready to see her, again. And we met up at a soccer game because it was my little brother's playing soccer, and it was fine. I mean, she just felt like one of my mom's friends, nothing like, I just said, hello, how are you? And just kind of went about my way. So, so I didn't really have to search, for my birth mother in that way.
Yeah.
For my birth father, it's interesting. It's kind of just I had my dad, and that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I wanted to know my birth dad's name, maybe see what his picture, looked like.
Yeah, what
but
it looks like.
I didn't feel like I needed to reach out and talk to him and just, see. Too, the hard thing is that he, from my knowledge, is that he's still in the Philippines. So,
okay.
How do I reach out?
Yeah. How do you?
So, and so I was able to get a picture. I do look a lot like my birth father.
Yeah.
And, when I want some information about my birth father, I do ask my birth mother, but she didn't really love talking about him. So
yeah,
that's fine. But that's the extent of my birth father, is that, yeah, I've got my dad here.
Yeah.
I know little bits and pieces here and there, and that's all I really need.
Yeah.
But for my birth mother, it's been a growing relationship. And she has understood now that it's on my own terms, my own pace. And so I think where it really turned for me is when I had my first baby. And becoming a mother, it was such a different feeling. And I was just like, okay, now I'm having this feeling of, I'm going to feel regret if I don't have some sort of relationship with my birth mother in some sort of way. Sure. And it wasn't in the way of, I want her to be grandma. I want her to have this, relationship with me. But it was just more, reaching out to her, showing her that, hey, I had a baby, just kind of being in each other's lives a little bit. Yeah. And so that's where it really took the biggest turn for me. And so we continually, we talk, message, a couple times, a few times a year. Yeah. She'll say Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, things like that. Now with social media and things like that, it's a lot easier.
Right.
And she actually does live in the Salt Lake area. And so when they moved to the area, that was interesting because I said, okay, well, now that they're a lot closer and more accessible, I can see them when I want. Yeah. And so she's met my kids and we've talked. She's given me, a lot more baby pictures of myself. And so we have a good relationship, but it's all based on how I want to do things. Mm-hmm. And she respects that.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it should be that way, Yeah. Especially in a mom-daughter relationship. I think that's healthy of you too, to set boundaries, which is hard to do with a parent. I mean, I was adopted by my stepdad and I know how hard it is to be like, okay, with holidays and everything, and they both live close by. It's like, okay. And it's hard. It's hard to navigate. It's hard to set those boundaries, but I think that's great.
Well, and I think she's, my birth mother has gotten to the point where she understands now that she is a birth mother and she doesn't have a say. Yeah, she doesn't
have those.
I think she's now appreciative that she even has communication with me, that she can, that I send her pictures of my kids, that, that she has that going for her. Cause, a lot of birth mothers don't have that, chance, unfortunately. But I think and of course she's had to work through her own issues and things like that. And so she's gotten to a better place. And I feel like I've gone through what I've needed to go through to be more accepting of my birth mother and understanding and where she, is coming from. I can only imagine being a single mother and having these two little kids. And so, when I was angry with her for so long, I got to this point where I said, you know what? I can't imagine giving up I don't want to say giving up, but placing my children, because I really can't take care of them. That is something that she really had to be selfless about and say, I want what's best for my children. And, she didn't first really get there. She had some encouragement.
Yes.
Some encouragement to get to the place where, okay, maybe you've got to think of another alternative for these children because
you're not able to do it.
You're doing now is not working. But I feel like where I am with my birth mother is a good place, and it'll just continue to be that way. And I feel good now that I have that relationship, where before I was like, oh, I know I'm going to regret it if I don't have some sort of communication with her.
Yeah.
So yeah. My little brother, we have different fathers.
Okay.
So she has been with my little brother's father for a long time.
Okay.
Long time. So he was at one point in the military. And so I think that they were moving around a lot for that. And then he got out, just so moving job to job, and so they moved all over the place. I'm guessing I actually have never asked her what brought her here. Or
it's
what
okay.
brought them
I know.
here. I assume a job.
Yeah.
But then they actually are no longer together. But my birth mother, she doesn't have like the school credentials and things like that in the US.
Yeah.
And so her working is a little bit limited.
Yeah.
Even just her speaking, her accent is very thick.
Yeah.
And so my brother's dad has been, really good in the manner of, yes, they're no longer together, but he's taking taking care of her. And so as of right now, their plans are to live here. After they placed my brother and I, they did have another child together. Okay. And so they kept him. And so I think they liked raising him here.
Yeah. So,
James is his name, my other half brother. He's 20 something now. So,
okay. Do you have a relationship with him at all?
A little bit, not as much as my little brother. So Ryan, he is my brother that was placed with me.
Yeah.
Not so much like Ryan. Ryan has a much deeper relationship with James. And I think that was just through his own, reaching out and
his own processes.
Yeah. And man, I would love for him to come and chat with you, but
I would love it too.
Is he a chatty Cathy? I don't think so.
No, I can get him talking.
But he recently got married, and so he actually lives in Sweden.
Oh, I was going to say he doesn't live here. So
yeah,
Sweden. We do Zoom.
Maybe.
But he doesn't. He's more private.
He is.
Yeah,
he is.
That's all right. I get that.
But for me and James, I know of him. We say hello, but that's kind of just the extent of our relationship. And so far, that's it. Maybe in the future, it'll be a little more than that. But yeah. As time has gone on, I think it's just being more accepting of adoption and being okay that, you've got families that are of different ethnicities and it's okay.
Yeah.
And, it's not because you felt bad for this child. And so that's why you have this child.
Right.
It's, and it's just being more accepted, and it's not scary to talk about anymore.
Yeah.
And I think, when my mom would talk to me about, even back then, and just saying, that just wasn't really a thing to do with, to adopt a child, outside of your ethnic race, that's just adopting a child. And so that's one thing that's changed for sure. I think I've gone through the time where nothing has really changed too much in the way of, I've always felt accepted by my peer groups, by my family, by my extended family, by other adoptive parents, by non-adoptive parents. Like, I think it's just what happens. And I think, too, a lot of people look at it as, there's a lot of kids out there that need good families, parents, siblings. And I think they just say, hey, if I can give that to a child, 2, 3, 4 children, why not?
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it gives also those parents that want to be parents. That
a chance to
can't be parents or, physically or whatever that looks like. Or, it gives them that chance to be a mother.
Exactly.
To be a family. And not that you can't be a family with just you two, but it gives families a lot more, whether they're adding or they're just wanting to adopt their one or whatever that looks like.
So what advice would you give to other adoptees?
Ooh. I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think I've ever given advice to anybody. And it's just more, telling my experience, my story. I think, again, it just helps other adoptees feel like, oh, okay. Yeah. My feelings I had then or what I was going through then, it's okay.
Yeah.
I do completely feel like, with any adoptees that are having a hard time, just trying to accept whatever it is or their feelings or feeling validated or anything, I mean, they need to talk to someone.
Yeah.
And whether that be a therapist or their parent or something.
Yeah. Anybody.
They need to get those feelings out there. And I think that's why for me, I've been able to be at the place where I am. Is because I have been able to talk to my parents. I've been able to talk to my therapist.
Yeah.
I've been able to talk to other adoptees, other adoptive parents, just anybody.
Yeah.
And I've never been ridiculed for my feelings or been bashed on or anything. And so I think that's one advice I would give them. The biggest one is that it's okay to feel how you're feeling. But if you're just stuck and you just can't, you're so angry or you're so hurt or you're so whatever that is, like you have to work through that.
Yeah.
Because
communicate. I think open communication is huge.
Because then you're stuck and you just feel terrible. And then it bleeds into your relationships and Yeah. And so that's my biggest advice is
I love that
to work through those.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's just good life advice too. The more you work on yourself, the better life you're going to have.
I mean, my kids are going to want to hear, my story and things like that. And I don't want them to see that I'm harboring any kind of anger or anything like that, because honestly, my birth mother did a selfless thing and she gave us, my brother and I, a much better life than she could have. And like I said, I mean, I don't know where we would have been or ended up or anything, but I know it's not the life I've lived. And, even now I probably wouldn't be with my same husband or have the kids I have, or who knows, I could have been gone anywhere.
Yeah. Anything.
Yeah. And, I think too, when I said that I felt like I had to grow up a lot sooner, I partially joked, but I was partially not joking.
Yeah.
When I would say this to my mom, I said, honestly, I would have probably had to drop out of school, help my mom with my little brother.
Yeah.
Help him get through school and, be a
mom
like
at
that.
a really young age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I could have gone flying off the rails. I don't know.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about or?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know.
I know we were just talking about how we get on here and then we're like, oh crap, we should have talked about that or we should have done this.
Unless Heidi has anything for me. But I also feel like this is, I don't know, a good place for me. I like being behind the microphone. Maybe not the camera part, but
whatever. You're going to look great. Yeah, I was going to say you're going to look great. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Good.
Thanks.